My name is Elias Moreau, and for the fourth year in a row, I was not invited to the Moreau family's annual gathering at our lake house in Quebec's Laurentian Mountains, Canada. I'm 32, the eldest son, yet my name has been erased from their emails, group chats, and the photo albums lining the cedar walls of the house my great-grandfather built with his own hands. They called me too brooding, too independent, too unwilling to blend into their curated image of family harmony. This time, I didn't beg for a seat at their table. I bought the entire lake house. So when they arrived with their ski bags and rehearsed smiles, the caretaker's voice cut through the crisp air. "Are you on Mr. Moreau's guest list?" For the first time in years, they had to say my name or turn back. Tuesday mornings in Montreal usually passed with a strong espresso, a half-eaten croissant, and a flood of architectural project deadlines. But this morning was different. I was reviewing blueprints for a sustainable community center when an email popped up. Moreau Family Winter Retreat 2025, RSVP by Friday. My stomach tightened. I clicked, already bracing myself. The entire family was CC'd. My sister Camille, my brother Julian, Aunt Vivienne, even cousin Mark, who hadn't shown up since the early 2000s. My name? Nowhere. Not in the recipient list, not in the itinerary, not even a stray typo. They hadn't just forgotten me. I was deliberately removed. The thread buzzed with replies. Camille gushing about cross-country skiing, Julian joking about last year's burnt raclette, a photo of the lake at twilight, its icy surface mirroring the pines where I'd carved my initials at 12. I scrolled, chasing a phantom follow-up email, a correction, anything. But I knew better. Last year, Camille swore my invite got lost in the cloud. The year before, Julian shrugged, "We figured you were buried in work." Excuses as fragile as the first snow. I slammed my laptop shut. My loft, with its exposed brick and sweeping view of the St. Lawrence River, felt like a stranger's. The drafting table, cluttered with sketches, mocked me. The Montreal skyline sparkled outside, but it couldn't thaw the cold knot in my gut. My gaze landed on a small wooden loon carving on my shelf, a gift from my grandfather for my 10th birthday. "For my dreamer," he'd said, "the one who sees what others ignore." That was before he started calling Camille our star, before he dubbed Julian the glue, before I learned being the eldest meant shouldering their expectations without their warmth. "You okay?" Sophie, my colleague, leaned against my desk, clutching her chai latte. I forced a nod. "Just family drama." She raised an eyebrow. "The lake house again?" I didn't answer, just flashed a tight smile and turned away. But I didn't reopen the blueprints. I grabbed my coat and left the office. The promotion I'd clawed for, lead architect at 32, the youngest in the firm's history, felt hollow. To them, I was the one who abandoned the family for the city, who chose sketches over their traditions, who didn't belong in their cozy tableau. My phone buzzed. A text from my friend Nico. "Saw the invite. Want to crash it for kicks?" I hesitated, then typed, "I'm thinking bigger." I opened a tab I'd bookmarked weeks ago, a real estate listing for the lake house. The same house where Camille threw her engagement bash, where my parents toasted their 35th anniversary, while I was stuck in Ottawa for a conference they forgot to mention. It was for sale, quietly, no family fanfare. The market had dipped, and they were shedding it like an outdated heirloom. I stared at the photos, the stone hearth, the dock jutting into Lac Tremblant, the porch swing where I'd read The Little Prince while Dad played his guitar. I hovered over Contact Agent and clicked. The realtor's confirmation was still sinking in when my phone rang. Mom's ringtone, a soft piano riff I hadn't changed in a decade. I let it ring 3 times. "Elias," she began, her voice laced with that practiced warmth she used to soften bad news. "We're sorting the retreat, and space is tight this year." I cut in. "Let me guess, Camille's fiancé needs the loft, or Julian's twins need extra cots?" Silence. Then, "You know how it is with the kids, mon chéri. It's just logistics." I could have laughed at the script. "Logistics," I repeated. "Right." I hung up before she could say, "You understand, don't you?" I understood perfectly. I was the spare part, useful only when they needed a loan or a favor, like the time I covered Julian's car payments without a thank you. Back at my desk, I pulled up my financials. The numbers were unflinching. Savings, investments, a bonus from a recent project. I whispered, "Let's do this." 10 minutes later, Nico texted, "Screenshot incoming. It was from a family chat I wasn't in. Camille, Elias isn't coming as expected. Too busy playing city hotshot. Let's keep it chill. Reactions piled up. Eye roll emojis. Aunt Vivienne, such a shame. Julian's, he needs to loosen up. I stared, the words searing. They weren't just excluding me. They were rewriting me, turning my absence into arrogance, my silence into betrayal. To them, I murmured, I'm a shadow who fled the light. But I hadn't fled warmth. I'd escaped their ice. My mind drifted to a winter when I was 11. We were at the lake house, and I'd spent hours carving a snow fort by the dock, turrets, a tunnel, a flag from an old scarf. The family gathered, awestruck. Then Camille climbed inside, posed for a photo, and Mom said, she's our little visionary. I didn't correct her. Camille didn't either. That night, I sat alone by the hearth while they laughed over mulled wine downstairs. Back in the present, I reopened the listing. No hesitation. I booked a viewing with the agent. This wasn't about drama. It was about precision, silent and final. The next day, I drove north to Mont Tremblant. The real estate office was a chalet-style building near the village square, nestled between a patisserie and a ski shop. A man with a gray beard and a wool scarf greeted me. Elias? I had a hunch you'd show. I nodded. Thanks for squeezing me in. He pulled up the listing. Odd question, he said. Related to the owners? I met his eyes. Not for much longer. The air was sharp as I entered the storage unit in Laval, a concrete box I hadn't touched in years. The scent of pine and damp cardboard grounded me. Unit 12C's lock clicked open. Inside were fragments of my past, my old drafting table, boxes of university notes, a crate of vinyls. In the corner was my grandfather's oak chest. I dragged it forward, the wood scraping. The hinges groaned, releasing a whiff of cedar and pipe tobacco. On top was his journal, leather-bound with a loon etched on the cover. Beneath it, an envelope in his shaky script. For Elias. Open when you stop seeking their permission. I sat on the cold floor and tore it open. A letter and a legal document. The letter was short. You'll know why this is yours. Family isn't always blood. It's the ones who see you. Use this when their silence deafens. The document was a trust, naming me beneficiary with a clause. In case of financial default or failure to maintain property obligations, the beneficiary may claim full title. My hands trembled. I didn't grasp every term, but I knew who could. The next morning, I sat in a sleek Montreal law office facing Claire Dubois, a lawyer with sharp eyes. She scanned the trust, her glasses glinting. This is ironclad, she said. Your family missed tax payments and let insurance lapse. You don't just have a claim. You have the deed. Sign this petition and the title's yours in 10 business days unless they contest. They won't win. I nodded, the weight settling. 10 days, the same time they'd be packing snowshoes and planning skating parties, assuming the house was theirs. That evening, I sat by my loft's window, grandfather's journal in my lap. I traced the loon's outline, hearing his voice. I set the wooden loon carving beside it. They matched, same quiet defiance. I signed the papers, not with glee, but with clarity. Claire handed me a copy. They don't know, do they? I shook my head. They will. The next day, I checked the lake house listing. A new photo showed the porch dusted with snow, ready for guests. Let them plan their retreat. Let them arrive with cider and grudges. They'd overlook the document that mattered. I wasn't seizing the house. I was claiming my birthright. The silence after signing was calm, but beneath it, I felt leverage. A new email arrived. Moreau family retreat, final RSVP. Camille's Gmail, all faux warmth. It detailed cabin assignments, a snowshoeing schedule, a playlist for cozy vibes. My name was absent. Nico forwarded a screenshot from a chat called True Moreau's. Camille, Elias is out again. Let's keep it drama-free. Julien added he's probably sketching in his cave. Mom, I offered his old room to Mark's girlfriend. It's just sitting empty. I read it twice. My old room, with grandfather's telescope, the desk where I'd sketched my first building, the quilt we'd sewn. They weren't forgetting me. They were dismantling me. I logged into the property's rental portal, now mine. One cabin remained, the main lodge, vaulted ceiling, lake view. I typed guest, Mr. E. Moreau. Arrival, Saturday. Stay, 4 nights. Preferences, stock local maple whiskey, extra firewood. Guest requests, privacy. Confirmation pinged. Their retreat under my name, my shoulders relaxed. That night, I paced my loft, a glass of red in hand. Old photos told the story. Retreats where I lit the fire but wasn't in the shots. Birthdays where my gifts were opened off camera. Dinners where I was too serious for their toasts. One image lingered. Camille by the lake, waving while I stood behind, cropped out online. Dad's words echoed, "You're too intense, Elias. Not everything's about you." But this house, this moment was mine. I was rewriting the narrative. I texted Nico, "Thanks for the heads up." Brace for stunned faces. He replied, "Can't wait for the implosion." The lake house was theirs to borrow, but the deed was mine. I parked a kilometer from the lake house on their arrival day, watching from my rental car. Camille's Audi pulled in first, followed by Julian's oversized SUV, then Mom's weathered sedan with its faded Proud Grandmama sticker. They didn't see me. They never had. At 5:30 p.m., they started unloading, laughter echoing, bags piling up. I gave them time to settle into what they thought was theirs. Then I drove up. At the lodge's reception, Camille was already at the counter, gesticulating. Julian lounged against a beam, just acting like he owned the place. Mom stood back, lips pursed. I stepped inside, boots crunching on the pine floor as the caretaker repeated, "I'm sorry you're not on Mr. Elias Moreau's guest list." Camille's face twisted. "This is absurd. This is our family's house. We've been coming here for decades." The caretaker's eyes flicked to me. "Mr. Moreau, welcome. I was just explaining." "I heard," I said, stepping beside Camille without glancing at her. "Let's clear this up." Julian straightened. "What's this, Elias? Some stunt? You think this is cute?" "I think it's overdue." I handed my ID to the caretaker. "The deed transferred 3 weeks ago. The house is mine." Silence fell, heavy and sharp. Mom clutched her scarf. "You bought it? That's impossible." "No, Mom," I said, steady but firm. "It's legal. You should have checked the trust grandfather left me." Camille's face paled. "Why? You knew we planned the retreat. This was our place. And I was your brother, your son. But you erased me from every invite, every photo. So I made my own way in." The caretaker hesitated, caught between us. Julian laughed, a brittle sound. "You think you can kick us out? You've won nothing." I turned to him. "I reclaimed something, Julian. That's different." To the caretaker, "Please escort anyone not on my registry. Be polite. They're family." She nodded, reaching for the phone. Camille muttered, "We'll fight this. You'll hear from our lawyer." "Read the clause on defaulted taxes first," I said, facing forward. "You might be surprised what was already in motion." Mom stepped closer, voice low. "You hate us this much?" I paused, then met her eyes. "I don't hate you. I just stopped waiting for you to see me." I walked to the stairs, their stunned murmurs fading behind me. As I reached the lodge's upper deck, my breath steadied, not relief but readiness. This wasn't the end. It was the opening salvo. The retaliation came faster than I expected. By morning, my phone was ablaze with notifications. A local news outlet had picked up the story. Montreal architect seizes family lake house, allegedly exploits elderly father. The article quoted Camille claiming I'd manipulated Dad during a vulnerable time. Comments flooded in. Greedy, heartless, disgrace to Quebec values. Then an email. Injunction notice. Cease occupancy of Lac Tremblant property pending review. And Nico forwarded a screenshot of Camille's public post. A man who betrays his own blood was never raised with love. Pray for his soul. Hundreds of likes, sad emojis, so sorry replies from strangers. I sat in the lodge's main room, staring at my phone. I should have seen it coming. Nothing prepares you for being branded a villain by the people who once taught you to skate. I didn't cry. I walked to the fireplace, where a small loon carving, another of grandfather's, sat on the mantel. "You deserve every good thing," he'd said, handing it to me at 15. I closed my hand around it. They'd painted me as a predator so convincingly I almost doubted myself. Almost. Nico texted, "They want war. Let's hit back." He sent files, screenshots of family chats, emails, texts, Camille mocking my loner vibes. "Mom, Elias is too wrapped up in his career to care about us. Don't feel bad leaving him out. He's always been a buzzkill." I read them, pulse quickening. They hadn't just excluded me. They'd built a narrative to justify it. I opened a document and began compiling. Every email, every text, every lie. This wasn't defense. It was counterattack. I contacted a journalist friend, Leah, who worked for a Montreal paper. "Interested in a family feud with receipts?" I asked. She was. I sent her the files, plus a recording from 2 years ago. Dad, clear-voiced, saying, "Elias gets the house. He's the only one who checked on me after the stroke. The others just asked for money." Leah's article dropped 48 hours later. Lake house dispute. Eldest son excluded. fights back with evidence. It included the recording and chat screenshots. The narrative flipped. Comments now read, "Shame on them. Elias deserves better." Camille's post was drowned in backlash. Julian went silent online. Mom called, but I let it go to voicemail. Their lawyer pushed harder, filing a motion claiming I'd forged the trust. I countered with Claire's help, presenting bank records showing their missed tax payments and lapsed insurance. Grounds for the trust's clause. The court date loomed. I upped the ante, leaking to Leah an email from Julian to Camille. "If Elias shows up, just say the house is full. He'll give up." The article hit the same day they arrived at court. The hearing was in a sterile Montreal courtroom, the air heavy with tension. Camille wore a tailored coat playing the victim. Julian slouched beside her. Mom sat rigid, avoiding my gaze. The judge, a woman with sharp eyes, called the case, Moreau v. Moreau, injunction against property transfer. Their lawyer argued I'd coerced Dad, citing his declining health. I stood, folder in hand. "Your Honor, I have video evidence of consent and family dynamics," she nodded. The room dimmed as the bailiff played the clip. Dad, steady, saying, "Elias gets the house. He's the only one who cared." Then Nico's audio. Camille, 6 months ago, sneering, "Elias was never one of us. Let him rot in his loft." The judge's brow lifted. Camille shrank. After a pause, the judge ruled, "No basis for the petition. The evidence shows clear intent and exclusionary behavior. Case dismissed." She added, "This court isn't here to fix family grudges or excuse cruelty masked as tradition." Camille's jaw dropped. Julianne stared at the floor. Mom's face was stone. I gathered my folder and left, their silence louder than any argument. My victory came with their public humiliation. But days later, while cleaning the lake house, I found an old box in the attic, a collection of Dad's letters. Inside were documents and correspondence from over a decade ago, from my teenage years. I'd buried those memories, or tried to. At 16, I'd fallen in with a bad crowd, stolen money from the family account for parties, and caused a car accident that forced Dad to sell a plot of land to cover damages. The letters revealed how the family quietly cleaned up my mess. Mom working overtime, Camille giving up a scholarship to help financially, Julian shouldering the pressure to maintain the family's perfect image. They never spoke of it, but the resentment grew, slowly pushing me out, excluding me from gatherings one by one. I sat on the hardwood floor, letters spread before me. The truth pierced like a cold blade. I thought myself a victim, but I was also the cause. My youthful mistakes had planted the seeds of this estrangement. They weren't right to erase me from their lives, but I wasn't blameless. The anger I'd carried for years began to melt, replaced by a deep sadness and painful self-awareness. Outside, reporters swarmed. "Mr. Moreau, any comment?" I paused. "Sometimes you have to break a cycle to hold your truth, but truth isn't always victory." Flashbulbs popped, but I walked on, past the courthouse to my car. Camille deleted her posts. Julian avoided the public eye. Mom's voicemail was a tearful plea I hadn't answered. I'd won, but the lake house felt emptier than ever. Back at the lake house, I sat by the fire, the loom carving in hand. The triumph was hollow. I'd exposed them, shamed them, but the letters changed everything. I wasn't just the one abandoned. I'd been the one who hurt them first. I walked to the dock, the lake's surface a mirror of stars. Grandfather's words echoed, "Don't raise your voice, Elias. Raise your worth." I'd raised my worth, but at the cost of burning what remained of my family. I opened his journal and read, "Forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you to live free." I sat with that, the fire crackling. Revenge was a bright but fleeting flame. Forgiveness was harder, but it was the way out, for me. I wrote a letter to my family, not an email, but handwritten as grandfather would have done. "I know about the mistakes I made as a young man. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want us to stop hurting each other." I mailed it, not expecting a reply. Slowly, I let the resentment dissolve, like snow melting into the lake. 6 months later, I was in Montreal, grabbing coffee near my office, when I saw Camille, alone at a cafe table, looking tired, staring at a laptop. Our eyes met. She froze, then looked away. I saw the screen, a job application. Nico had mentioned she'd lost her law firm job after the scandal. I approached. "Camille?" She flinched. "What do you want?" Her voice was brittle. "Need a reference?" I asked. She blinked, confused. "Why would you help me?" I shrugged. "Because I want to end this hatred. for both of us. She said nothing, but her eyes softened just for a moment. I walked away, lighter. Helping her wasn't about reconciliation. It was about erasing the last shards of resentment I carried. The lake house was mine, but so was my peace. I'd spent years chasing their approval, then their shame. Now I chased nothing. As I drove back to the lake house that weekend, the wind carried the scent of pine, snow, and freedom. I hung a loon wind chime on the porch, its gentle clinks a reminder. I wasn't just home, I was whole, unbound by the past or resentment.